Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys comparison video. Now today we're going to be talking all things die-cast War Machine, and I couldn't be more excited because this figure, the Mark IV standing in the front, has absolutely blown me away, and I can't wait to compare this guy to the previous War Machine releases. Now either way, if you do want to pick up your very own War Machine Mark IV or any of the ACGHK, SDCC, or Endgame figures, the link is down in the description below to Philip Liu, the toy wizard from Toys of Wonderland HK. He has the Mark IV in stock and up for pre-order for the second batch right now on his website. As I said, go and check out the links down in the description below. Now either way, what we're going to do now is compare the Mark IV War Machine to everyone's favorite, the Mark I. Kicking off the comparisons with everyone's favorite Mark I diecast figure. He's also one of my favorites, but I have to say this new guy could be taking that place very soon. Now, let me first say that I know the battle damage pieces are on the Mark I right now, but this is more to compare the size, bulk, rather than the sort of clean look versus the damage look. I don't think it really matters. Either way, you can see that the height is pretty similar between these two. To my eye though, not on camera, but to my eye, the Mark IV looks a tiny little bit taller, but in terms of the bulk, the Mark I wins all day long. This guy is huge. He's got a lot more sort of weathering, and I wouldn't even call it weathering. He's just got that realistic pass of like a wash and a lot of little chips, and the Mark IV is unfortunately missing that compared to all of the other War Machine figures. I mean, I don't know why they didn't do that. I really like how it looks on the other figures. It brings that sense of realism. They did it in the CGI to make it look more real, and I guess they should do it on figure form as well because it does enhance the realism of the figure. But either way, what we're going to do now is compare the head sculpt inside the War Machine Mark I figure compared to the War Machine Mark IV. So the ever-evolving likeness of Don Cheadle, or maybe not, because technically it's still the exact same head sculpt, but we will be comparing the paintwork. Now, comparing the Don Cheadle likeness in the Mark I War Machine to the Mark IV, they are the exact same head sculpt. There is a little bit of a difference in terms of the paintwork though. You can see that there's a little bit more detail in the new one. You'll probably notice that gap sort of closing when we start looking at the newer and newer figures, but the Mark I being the oldest of the bunch, you can see that there is some detail lacking. I think the paintwork has come a long way in terms of how they capture the sort of skin pores and everything, but I still do think that the Mark I is no slouch. Now you can obviously see that the helmet looks a hell of a lot different between the two figures, especially on the inside, so there might have been some resculpting done in order to widen the sides of the face. Alright, here we have the runt of the litter, unfortunately being the Mark II. I think this is everyone's least favorite. This is the same design that was used in Iron Man 3 for the Iron Patriot, just recolored for Age of Ultron. Now, there were two different versions of this. There was the sort of concept version. I guess they called it War Machine Mark II for Iron Man 3. It had that more sort of, sort of matte gunmetal look. This has the more accurate dark grey from Age of Ultron. So this is the Age of Ultron release. Now, he does look really awesome standing side by side the Mark IV. However, you can see sort of why people aren't really loving on the Mark II. It's very sleek, which I do appreciate, but a lot of people do like the bulk on War Machine, the sort of armored up look. As I said, very sleek, a lot less in terms of the armaments compared to some of the other figures. I still really like it, but I know a lot of people do not. Now, comparing the Mark II, you can see that the likeness is exactly the same. Again, it's just the paintwork that's different. This one's, I'm noticing, is a little bit lighter in terms of the skin tone, but I do think that the detail is getting a little bit better compared to the Mark I. You can still see that there is that sort of, I don't even know what you call that, like a little skin indentation. He does have it on the new one, and he does have it on the older version, except it's a little bit cleaner on the newer one. So too, I guess is like the paintwork on the eyebrows. They look a lot cleaner, a lot sharper on this one here. You can see the molding is a lot sharper, but that means there is less paint on the old one. But either way, again, same head sculpt, just the paintwork being a little bit different. Now when it comes to the Mark III, our comparison is going to go a little bit deeper than the other ones because there are a few little bits and pieces that are borrowed from the previously released War Machine Mark III. I'll touch on that in just a second, but comparing these two side by side, you are noticing some key differences. The shoulder pads of the Mark III look a lot bigger. There's a little bit more sleekness that's been borrowed from the Mark II, I guess, on the new figure, but you are seeing a little bit more bulk in the backpack section, and also I guess in those sort of trap sections that extend back towards the backpack. Also, you can see the upper thighs are a little bit thicker, and also I guess the lower leg is a little bit thicker as well. There's a little bit more thickness here and there, a little bit more slimness. It's just an evolution of the design that we sort of started to see with the Mark III, just enhanced a little bit more. And I really do like the evolution of War Machine towards the Iron Patriot, that huge, massive suit that we saw in Endgame. But what I said in the review still holds true. If you do have the Mark III, I still think you should pick up the Mark IV. They are different enough to have on your shelf together and still not look out of place and not look like the exact same figure. And now the final one, we have the Mark III compared to the Mark IV. Now I'm noticing that the paintwork on the skin tone is a little bit darker on the Mark III to the Mark IV. So I think this is the darkest in terms of the skin tone, but I do think it's the closest in terms of the detail. It's looking very sharp because this was only released back when the Civil War stuff came out, but it is looking really good. You can also see that the gap, well, I guess this is the exact same helmet between the two figures, so you wouldn't expect any differences. It is literally just the paintwork between the two, but you can see all the sort of scuffs and scrapes. I wish that detail was put in, especially along the edges of the Mark IV. But the first thing that I've noticed that's borrowed from the Mark III, which is on the left, is the neck. You can see they are identical between the two figures. And the second thing is the head. Yeah, you heard that right. The head is identical between these two. You can see all of the molding is exactly the same. It's obviously the paintwork that's just a little bit different, and it differentiates these two figures. Another piece that's borrowed from the previously released figure, or a couple of pieces, are on the arm. So the first one is the inner joint. It's identical between the two, just painted a different color. And then this panel that's removable to swap out with the gun. Not only is this panel the same, but the gun is as well. So they've borrowed these pieces from the Mark III, which makes sense because they were pretty cool weapons to have attached to the arm itself. When it comes to the legs, you can see these pieces here are borrowed, so they are the exact same in terms of the inner joint, again just painted a different color. And then these panels on the back which move are identical between the two. The design is exactly the same, it's just the paintwork which is different. You can see the little rivets on here, you can see the little rivets on there, and pretty much the entire foot is the same between these two as well. So it's good to see Hot Toys are saving a little bit of money by reusing some of the design from the Mark III, as long as that's accurate to the film. I didn't go so far as to check the feet accuracy between these two figures, but I doubt Hot Toys would skimp on such an important detail, especially when, you know, you got this guy flying, those feet are going to be dangling in the air, so I'm pretty sure they're going to be accurate. It actually looks like the front panel on the foot is the same as well, so another borrowed piece from the Mark III. Now I did quickly want to do a closer comparison on the Outriders themselves. They are, I have noticed, the exact same in terms of the sculpting. Now this guy's obviously painted a lot different in terms of the charring and weathering, but you can see all the sculpt work is identical between these two figures. I thought that there'd be some uniqueness, but no, that is not the case. Now, one thing that is interesting on the new one, the inside of the mouth is very, very vibrant and red and glossy, whereas the other one is sort of pink and not as glossy. I do prefer the look of this one. I don't know why you'd get charred and then your mouth would turn red, but either way, I do like the way that looks. I wish this guy could have been painted that way. The only disappointing thing about this guy is sort of the paintwork. It's very flat and the molding is also a little bit soft, but I guess this is sort of a throwaway piece. I'm interested to know though, I wonder if Studio Hive, the company that's doing the dynamic sort of diorama display bases for the Vulture Wing, for the quarter scale Spider-Man, and also the Molten Man for the Night Monkey figure, I'm wondering if that's the same company that did these. I'll have to do some research and let you guys know. Just wrapping up on this War Machine comparison video, this has been a little bit eye-opening in terms of how Hot Toys go about their process of making the new figures, borrowing some stuff from some of the older releases, which I think does work quite well in getting us a character that does cost a lot of money in R&D to make. Now, the reason I've got the Mark I and the Mark III out here is because I think the Mark IV is the perfect hybrid between the two. It's taken people's favorite armors, meshed them together into this one awesome figure. Now, we do have to wait and see how the Mark VI turns out. It's looking a lot sleeker, which I do appreciate, but I don't know if everyone else does. So when we get that in hand, we'll do another huge War Machine comparison video. Now, if you do want to pick up your very own War Machine Mark IV, hit up the link down in the description below to Philip Liu, the toy wizard from Toys Wonderland HK. He has them in stock right now or up for pre-order for the second batch if you'd like to save yourself just a little bit of money. Also check out the pre-order links for any of the ACGHK or San Diego Comic-Con figures. They are all down in the description below, as well as any of the Endgame releases. Check out Justin's Collector Group on Facebook, Mint and Seal Box. Links are down below. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Well, I do like the battle damage on the left. But either of these two, this is the new one because it's got the camera print on it. I like that this one has a little bit of damage. This is like too perfect. Like if I was to say like which one just like draws my eye straight away, it's that one. Just because it's raw.